Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
One of the best weekends in sports got off to a bang. A few monster upsets in the NCAA Tournament. We'll go around the country for the local reactions to Thursday's games. And does the NFL really need revamped kickoff rules? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Few things can match the first couple days of the NCAA Tournament. Thursday was no different, although we had plenty of blowouts. The big dogs mostly handled their business, but one blue blood didn't. Kentucky lost to Oakland, and not even that Oakland. The Oakland in Michigan, 80-76. Kentucky was the most bet team to win the title, and they are out. Isaac Shade from Locked On College Basketball joins me now. And Isaac, all right, no 116s, no 215s. Okay, but we got to talk about Kentucky because this was how these upsets can happen. You have a guy who hits 10 3-pointers. 10 3-pointers. Jack Golke was absolutely incredible. 32 points. You do the math. That's one non-3-pointer basket.
And those were free throws. Those were free throws. The other. Oh, it was insane, Peter. I love it because we're always wondering, like, who's going to be that household name that we all learn? And of course, it's Jack Golke, as we all expected it to, right? You know, like, I just absolutely love it. But here's my frustration with everyone putting all this money on Kentucky. I've been trying to warn you. Their defense is terrible, Peter. There are only 12 teams in this tournament whose defense is rated worse. And only one of them, Alabama, was better than a 12 seed. So it's like, come on. This was plain and simple. Now, did I expect it to be Oakland? By no means. This was incredible. What a story. Greg Kampe to his team pregame, Peter. Quote, "We have a chance to change our lives." Peter, I was born in the year 1984, the same year a famous book was written, and I turned 40 years old this year. Why is that relevant? Because that's the same year Greg Kampe took over at Oakland, which was then a Division II program.
Wow.
He's been there toiling for 4 decades, and now for the first time, he's moving on to the round of 32.
I mentioned we had some plenty of other games that were not nearly as, we did not have the typical buzzer beater filled day that we can sometimes get when there's this many games. Dayton and Nevada was close late, but Dayton pulled that one out. Is it surprising to you that given the 3-point shooting variance that we see, and I blame a lot of that for the blowouts. We've seen that in the NBA as well, where we get these games where it's like, okay, one team shoots, 50% from three, the other team shoots 30%, and you got a 15, 18-point game. Are you surprised that we didn't see more on day one, given how big a role shooting variance can play in all these games?
Well, what's funny? The team that played on Thursday that season long has the biggest 3-point variance lost, and that's BYU, who lost to Duquesne, which was the first upset of the day.
Not Duke. Duquesne.
Not Duke. And what's funny is if Duquesne had won and Duke won on Friday, we would have gotten Duquesne against the Dukes at some point, maybe down the road. Anyway, we'll see what happens there. We might get it. But yeah, Peter, I mean, it really is wild, especially given all the variance that we've seen all year long, that for the most part, it was a pretty straightforward day. You talked about Dayton. They were the better seeded team. They were down 17, came roaring back, 24-4 run to close the game. Great showing from them. But it really is interesting to see most of these better seeded teams doing what they're supposed to do.
Talk to me a little bit about Oregon, because that was one that I think a lot of people did not see coming. South Carolina was kind of a trendy, hey, this team could go on and make a run. Well, you get 40 points from someone, you got a good chance to win a basketball game. But Oregon was really impressive, 53 points in the second half and an 87-73 win. What did you see from Oregon?
Well, what's interesting is, Peter, both Oregon and NC State, who were the Power 6 bid stealers winning their conference tournament, both taking care of business here on Thursday night. I guess I should say, as we record, NC State is still winning. We expect them to pull that off against Texas Tech. But, man, Cuisinart, what a dude. He's had it's like him and then N'Faly Dante and Jackson Shelstad. That's like your big three trio for Oregon. And quite honestly, Andy Patton, my co-host on Locked On College Basketball, who is a Pacific Northwesterner and is really in on that, has been saying that this seems like it might have saved Dana Altman's job by winning that Pac-12 championship. And then here he goes and wins the first game of the NCAA tournament. So it's amazing what getting a performance like this can do, not just in the short term, but kind of extending your stay as a coach at a certain school.
Keep up to date all year on college basketball by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On College Basketball on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. And thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, we go around the country for local reactions to Thursday's tournament games. Before we get to that, there are a few non-tournament sports headlines to keep up on. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Gametime has plenty of last-minute tickets to your favorite team. They also make it easy to get in the gates with flash deals and zone deals. Gametime makes it easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. They've got views from all the seats in the venue and the lowest price guaranteed. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Right now, new Gametime users get $20 off their first purchase with code Locked On. Terms apply. Just download the Gametime app and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume because of all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. In the association, the Mavericks had a chance to jump into the top 6 of the Western Conference if they could just beat the pesky Jazz.
The Dallas Mavericks get a win against the Utah Jazz, and going into this game, the Jazz needed to take care of business. The Mavs have turned into the Lob City Clippers. Just an insane difference between what we've seen from the Mavericks, and this game kind of encapsulated, and a lot of the Mavs games recently have kind of encapsulated what the Mavs have turned into. They've turned into this team that is big, that can defend pretty well, that defends the paint sometimes better than they did in this game tonight. But they're a team that can rebound. They're a team that has dunkers and athletes all over the place. So we are not used to a team like the Dallas Mavericks with athletes like they have on this team. The Mavs in this game, 18 dunks total in this game. That's the most by any team in over 20 years. That's from StatMuse. 18 dunks for the Mavericks tonight. They made 43 shots. So the Mavericks made almost half of their shots. I guess that's closer to like a third of their shots were dunks that they made.
And the Magic tops the Pelicans.
This is Phil Frostman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, as the Orlando Magic defeat the New Orleans Pelicans 121-106. And this was a game that felt like a playoff game. The crowd was obviously into it. Jamal Mosley started his post-game presser by thanking the fans for bringing the energy, but they brought the energy because the Magic brought their game with them too. This was not a clean game by any stretch. The Orlando Magic struggled, especially in the first quarter, but they stuck with their game plan. They knew that the corners were going to be open, that they had to hit some shots to loosen the Pelicans defense, and then they had to get down and get stops. And once the Magic were able to get some stops, once they were able to defend a little bit more consistently, they started to hit those shots and they started to pull away. These adjustments, and really it's not even an adjustment, this poise is what it's going to take to win in the playoffs. The Magic have not played a lot of these playoff caliber teams since the All-Star break. It's just the 4th playoff team that they played since the All-Star break. They've struggled in these games. Tonight they had a great showing to prove they're ready.
Plus, while the Shohei Ohtani news cycle gets turning, the Dodgers split the 2-game series in Korea against the Padres to open the 2024 Major League Baseball season.
Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who had a really, really, really bad day. He pitched 1 inning, allowed 5 earned runs. That's a 45 career ERA at this point in his career. the very first pitch he threw was right down the middle to Xander Bogaerts. Bogaerts smoked it up the middle. And it seemed to me, I'm not a pitching coach. I'm not a psychologist. I don't play either of those things on TV. I'm just a lowly podcaster. But it seemed like, Bogaerts probably got the scouting report from the Mariners game that Yamamoto pitched in spring training, said he's around the zone. He likes to throw first pitch strikes, jump on it. And maybe Yamamoto got spooked a little bit by that one and maybe tried to be too fine after that because it seemed like he was trying to avoid the middle of the plate and ended up avoiding the plate altogether too often.
The first day of the tournament brought plenty of emotions to our local Locked On hosts, starting with Michigan State, who got the day going with a big game performance in a dominant win over Mississippi State.
There's no way as a State fan you could watch that game and be like, they could have done this a little better. Not really, because there is so much that could put a twinkle in our eye. We're talking individual performances, like you said, Tyson Walker, magician. He puts up 19 points. Jaden Akins, where art thou? Well, he was just saving it all for his first March Madness game of the season. He had 15 points, 7 rebounds, 1 block, 1 steal. He was a menace on both sides of the floor. The only thing he did wrong was miss what would have been the best dunk of the tournament at the end of the game there, but he was sensational for Michigan State. Also, the center position, maybe collectively having their best game of the season. We got to pull out Mady Sissoko. Of course, we have been hard on him on this show many a time. We could have a debate later on after recording whether we're right or wrong for that, but he played his best game of his season, I think. Just 2 points. We're talking 9 rebounds. Incredibly active on defense. He had a block too. And folks, we're starting the nickname here, as corny as it may be. It's not Mady Sissoko. It is Dennis Ramadan with grabbing every single rebound possible. He's not eating from sun up to sundown, but he was gobbling up every single rebound that Mississippi State had to offer for him. He played outstanding.
Then there's BYU, who was the first to feel the sting of upset as they fell victim to Duquesne.
Folks, that was brutal. I'm not going to mince words about it. Absolutely brutal. BYU loses 71-67 in the first round of the NCAA tournament. They flame out after a season that featured a ton of breakthroughs. Frankly, a great debut overall in the Big 12 Conference, but it ends in disappointing fashion for the BYU basketball program as they get upset in March Madness. This was a game that had many of the hallmarks of BYU teams of yesteryear that I think all of us, yours truly included, would have liked to have thought that BYU was moving past. A team that couldn't be intimidated, a team that could absorb the quote-unquote haymakers being thrown by the opponents, quite literally in certain circumstances in this game that ended up in a double technical for Noah Waterman. But nonetheless, a tough loss for BYU and a tough pill to swallow for the BYU basketball program. The biggest thing I take away from this game is, as I said in the open, BYU took some punches early on in this game, and frankly, it was 6 minutes and 30 some odd seconds of the first half without a made field goal from the field, and then the start of the second half where they essentially spent the first 4 minutes floundering as well, allowing Duquesne to build up pretty good leads in both of those circumstances. Wasn't it like 10 points in the first half, if I recall correctly? I know it was 14 points in the second half, and BYU battled back from both of those deficits, but they were too far behind.
Just to recap, Duquesne, not Duke, Duquesne. They lost to Duquesne. Okay. Then there's the other side of upsets who absolutely have the time of their life, like Oregon. The Ducks were the lower seed against South Carolina, but the scoreboard, didn't know it.
Remember like 2 weeks ago when Oregon was going to go to the NIT and there were plenty of Oregon fans online who wanted Dana Altman to be removed as Oregon's head coach? I don't think that those people are going to be vocal anymore. Not saying there wasn't an argument to be made, but that argument has been thrown out the window from the 24th floor where I'm coming to you from in my hotel in Las Vegas, where I watched that beautiful spectacle unfold against the Gamecocks. And that notion of Dana Altman not being Oregon's coach, it has gone crashing down, and it is shattered because Oregon, with Jermaine Couisnard and Folly Dante leading the way, who I'll get to in more detail later in the show, just a masterful coaching clinic by Dana Altman. The start was kind of back and forth, both teams feeling each other out. It was a low-scoring game at the half, and then Oregon just turns it on in the second half, and Couisnard just never missed. I don't know if he actually missed a shot. Dante missed a shot. Guy's a bum, right? Anyway, so I think that this was just an awesome game to watch. Like the turnaround around this team and around this program over the last couple of weeks has been just nothing short of remarkable.
Redemption can be just as powerful as an upset, though. Just ask Arizona. They weren't about to repeat last year as they cruised to a big win over Long Beach State.
The University of Arizona took care of business against Long Beach State. And again, this was kind of a frustrating performance to start off, as I think anybody that was watching this game who's an Arizona fan, they would all concur, because Arizona was missing layups and Long Beach State was playing pretty good ball. One thing, though, that I was not super concerned about this, because generally when you have really good teams, they are not going to continue to miss layups. And that was the case. Arizona proved to me right there. They did not continue to miss layups, and they took advantage and they cruised. Now, a couple things that we got to start off with. Kylan Boswell, he's obviously been a lightning rod this season for Arizona fans, including yours truly. But he was fantastic in this game, and there's really no way to minimize his impact on the game, because he basically kept Arizona in it in the first half, because you started to get a little bit worried, when Arizona's kind of at that under 8 timeout, and you're like, all right, man, this is a 4-point game. And then you start worrying, all right, are you going to go into halftime down? And then you start worrying about all the ghosts of Christmas past, saying, all right, well, is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? All kinds of things that you do not want to have happen. And that did not happen. And a big reason why was Kylan Boswell. Boswell was absolutely fantastic.
Coming up, do we really need kickoffs in the NFL? Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. This afternoon's matchup between the 11 seed New Mexico and the 6 seed Clemson. See, the underdog is the favorite. You heard me. The 11 seed is favored. FanDuel has New Mexico laying 3.5 in this one. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. For the past few years, it feels like the NFL has been trying to tell us the kickoffs don't matter. Now they want to introduce new rules to make it more important than ever. What gives? Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson try to make sense of this on a recent episode of Peacock and Williamson.
Nobody cares about special teams. Nobody's tuning into special teams. Shorten the broadcast, shorten the games, do away with kickoffs, right? But the NFL wants to keep kickoffs. They want to keep those commercial breaks surrounding kickoffs. So they're trying to find ways to make it more exciting and still safe. So this, Matt, is the proposal. We'll go through it and we'll see if we like it. We'll see if it even makes sense, because it's pretty convoluted. It's pretty long. Any kick that hits in the landing zone, which is the goal line to the 20-yard line, must be returned. Must be returned if it's in the landing zone.
So you can't do the fair catch thing now.
No fair catch.
Yeah, good.
Any kick hits before the landing zone, so this is before it gets to the 20-yard line. So this would be a short kick or a squib kick or a shank or, anything like that. Mm-hmm. Any kick that hits before the landing zone, doesn't get to the 20-yard line, that is a touchback to the 40 as if it went out of bounds in the old rules.
So you can't squib anymore, really, or you're penalized.
No squib. No squib. Has to land past the 20.
I don't love that part.
If a kick hits the landing zone, rolls into the end zone, and is downed, that's a touchback to the 20-yard line.
Okay, so it's not as beneficial as it used to be.
Right. By 5 yards.
Yeah.
If a kick lands in the end zone or goes out the back, then it's a touchback to the 35-yard line.
So they don't want people blasting them out of the end zone.
So you blasting it out of the end zone gets to the 35. You kick it too short or out of bounds, it comes to the 40. If you kick it in the red zone is the landing zone, basically. If you kick it into the landing zone between the 20-yard line and the goal line, it must be returned. And basically the goal is the NFL wants every kick to land short of the goal line. Right.
This is a solution in search of a problem. There is no problem with the current kickoff. Most of them go out of the back of the end zone. So that's what you wanted to do. You wanted to reduce the injuries. You've done that. Most of the kickoffs go out of the back of the end zone. The only time they don't really is when it's really cold or bad weather, or teams do it intentionally. You've reduced the amount of kickoffs. That's what you wanted. And if you want to keep tweaking the format so that you get exciting returns without the injuries, it's really not possible. It's really not. Whether you try what the XFL tried, it just gets too gimmicky. Who cares about the kickoffs? You've essentially eliminated kickoffs from the game, and guess what? No one noticed. No one cares. So just eliminate it. You score a touchdown, you get the ball on the 25, the other team. That's it. And yes, it eliminates the onside kick, but guess what? Those didn't work either. And once the rules were changed on that, for player safety, by the way, which is great, protect the players, but it's made it essentially impossible to recover an onside kick. So if you want to add the rule, take away kickoffs, and then add the rule, you can get 4th and 25 or whatever you want to say for an onside kick once a game, I'm all for it. But this is silly. This is silly. And finally, name, image, and likeness has won. The G League Ignite will not play after this season. The league made the announcement Thursday saying it was shutting down the Henderson, Nevada-based Ignite because of the changing basketball landscape, including the NCAA's name, image, and likeness, or NIL, and the advent of collectives and transfer portals as its primary reason. The league has been an alternative for potential players who wanted to focus on basketball instead of school. The G League was that place. G League President Sharif Abdur-Rahim said 4 years ago, we started Ignite to fill a void in the basketball landscape, and I'm proud of the contributions we were able to make to that ecosystem. Now kids get to stay in school and make money? I don't know, seems like a win-win. As you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, and now you can watch it on Amazon Fire TV channel's app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel, now available on the free Fire TV channel's app. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, who will be this year's NCAA Tournament Cinderella? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.